Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Hidden Figures movie panel. I am so excited to welcome you all to tonight's event. My name is Anna Volker, and I am the coordinator of outreach for The Ohio State University's Department of Astronomy, which is co-sponsoring this event in partnership with the Department of Mathematics. I'm really excited to have you all joining us tonight and just want to go over a couple quick accessibility reminders. If you are using the closed captioning services, be sure to click the closed caption button at the bottom of your screen to ensure that the captions are working for you. And as always, we have an on-screen ASL interpreter who will be interpreting with us throughout today's event. With that, I'd like to welcome Christian Jones, who will be our guest host for today's program. Christian, thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be able to host this panel. So as Anna said, I'm Christian Jones. I'm a senior aerospace engineering major at Wichita State University, and also a co-founder of the new Patty Grace Smith Fellowship, and I will be your host today. So I'm so excited to be here, talk about one of my favorite movies, Hidden Figures. So enough about me. I want to get to know a little bit about our panelists. So I will start off with Sharon McDougall. She is a former NASA crew escape equipment manager and crew chief. Sharon, thank you so much for being here. Could you tell us a little more about yourself?
Yes, be glad to. Thank you guys for having me. Well, I was with the Aerospace program, Space Shuttle program for 22 years. And before that, I was in the Air Force for 7.5 years, which is where I received all my training to transfer over to work with the astronauts. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I had my, all of my little first Black woman to be in my department, first Black woman to be a crew chief, first Black woman to be the manager of the department. So that's pretty much it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And we're so happy to have you here. So next up is Dr. Anthony A.C. Edmonds, Ross Assistant Professor at the Ohio State University Department of Mathematics. I'm so happy to have you here, Dr. Anthony. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. So my name is Dr. Anthony Edmonds. So I'm a postdoctoral fellow in the Department of Mathematics at The Ohio State University. So and I was also informed that I think that I'm one, if not the first, one of the first Black females to hold this position. There I do a lot of research. So I study pure mathematics. So I study something called factorization theory, which is the idea of decomposing mathematical objects into their smallest pieces. But I'm also really interested in math education and specifically work related to equity and inclusion and access to minoritized persons in STEM. And so this Hidden Figures story just speaks to my heart. I've done a lot of work and outreach related to it. And I'll tell you more about this as the occasion calls, as we continue to get to know each other tonight.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here with us today. So next up is Dr. John H. Johnson Jr., Assistant Professor and Academic Program Specialist at The Ohio State University, Department of Mathematics. Thank you so much, Dr. John, for being here. And can you tell us a little more about yourself?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. And thanks so much. I'm excited to be a part of this panel and part of this discussion about this great story. Like Dr. Edmonds, I'm also a mathematician in the mathematics department. So I've been in the department a little bit longer than Dr. Edmonds. So I started out as a postdoc in the department in 2012 and continuing on. My area of research is actually algebra. So kind of the study of algebraic systems that change over time with applications to other parts of mathematics. And like Dr. Edmonds also has an interest in understanding mathematical communities, how you can make mathematical communities more inclusive and open. And to me, this like one of the remarkable things about the Hidden Figure story is that how these women mathematicians were developing a community, a supportive community, and still producing excellent work given the times and the things that they were dealing with. And so I think it's just an incredible story, both for kind of examining things that we have to improve today, and then also understanding what our mathematical ancestors accomplished back then.
Awesome, man. I wish I had you for my algebra classes in high school. I'm like, man, I'll be a lot farther. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. John. So last but not least, Kayla Watson. She is an aerospace engineer and executive leadership team member for the Brooke Owens Fellowship. Thank you so much for being here with us, Kayla. And can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Christian. I think you did a great job introducing me. My name is Kayla Watson. I'm an OSU alum. I graduated in 2019 with a degree in aerospace engineering. I was a 2018 Brooke Owens Fellow with Anna here, and Christian as well is also a Brooke Owens Fellow. Now I'm on the executive team for the Brooke Owens Fellowship, which is a fellowship for women and gender minorities interested in aerospace. Right now I work as a system reliability engineer at Amazon Prime Air, which is Amazon's drone delivery service. So it's pretty groundbreaking in itself, kind of like Hidden Figures. Hidden Figures is very inspirational to me as it came out during a year in school in which I went from being on the dean's list to being on academic probation, actually. And I wanted to give up aerospace, but this movie really inspired me, and I just felt like it was meant for me. I loved all the connections to John Glenn, being from Ohio and having so many buildings named after him at Ohio State, as well as with our Brooke Owens Fellowship. One of our founders, Lori Garver, met her husband through John Glenn. So I felt like all the pieces aligned. It really inspired and encouraged me. So I'm excited to discuss the film.
Beautiful. The stars aligned, and we're so happy to have you in the aerospace industry. It is an absolute honor to have you. So now I want to go pick you all's brains, kind of get some ideas about, talking a little bit about the movie takeaways and your experiences in the industry that kind of have a parallel to the movie. So I want to throw this first question. I'm like, who do I want to pick on first? Sharon, I think I'll throw this question at you first. So this is a real story of 3 Black women who overcame racial discrimination and countless societal barriers to become leaders in NASA's space programs. Although we've had great progress since the 1960s, we still have a long way to go when it comes to racial equity in the STEM fields and beyond. What obstacles have you faced as Black professionals in the mathematics and aerospace community?
There we go. Well, I've been very fortunate. I get asked this question quite often. I really haven't had any obstacles, but I did have something happen that could have become one while I was working in the aerospace industry. It was a NASA lead suit tech. We were United Space Alliance. We were the largest contractor for the space shuttle program for NASA. And there was a NASA lead suit tech, a white lady, who was, for lack of a better way to put it, she was jealous of my knowledge because I came there already from the Air Force, already experienced. And she was jealous of the relationships I had built with the crew members, with astronauts, because it wasn't the same with her. So she wrote a letter to my supervisor stating that my work wasn't up to par and the crew wasn't happy with me, to try to get me in trouble. Yeah. And you know what I did? I asked the crew because I was like, have I done something to offend you? I went straight to them since she put that in the letter. And that got the ball rolling. Each one of the crew members wrote a letter to my supervisor. They took the time. These are astronauts, took time to write a letter saying how pleased they were with me and how they couldn't think of not having me there because, my personality was bubbly and everything. And, it helped make getting in and out of that suit a little more pleasurable, having somebody that is chatting with them and not just a robot putting the suit on and taking it off, So yeah, we had to go to HR and everything. So that could have become an issue. And then after that, she tried to force my supervisor to have me work under her, beneath her, as an insertion technician, which are the technicians that strap the crew members in. And I refused because I know if I would have been working under her, she would have found a way to tarnish my reputation or get me in trouble or maybe even make me lose my job. So that was the only thing that I really ran into that was pretty bad. Other than that, I was judged on my merit. My race never came into play, my gender. I mean, I saw some other little situations with other people, but I was very, very fortunate, even in the Air Force.
Beautiful. Dr. John, I want to throw that question to you over as well. I'm curious to know your answer.
So I think I've been fortunate to have like great mentors kind of looking out for me and kind of guiding me on my career and suggesting opportunities. I would say like more like the challenges or the struggles that I experienced is that as a student and then as a professional, just kind of day-to-day interactions. There's always kind of like this double consciousness thing about, is it really like about race, or is just, you know, a bad comment, or I'm just blowing out of proportion and things like that. I remember being an undergraduate in my class, often the only Black male in my math class, and you know, just kind of struggling to try to keep up with the material and working hard and kind of thinking, you know, do I have what it takes to kind of succeed in this class? And then, you know, maybe asking a professor just to kind of give a concrete example, hey, how do you solve this particular problem? And then maybe they say, oh, well, it's easy. And they just give like a one-word reply, and then they walk away. And at the time, I didn't know how to take that. Was they saying that it was easy, that if I had what it take, I would see that it's easy and wouldn't ask the question? Or are they saying that it's easy, then I'm overthinking it, and I need to kind of take a step back to reevaluate the problem? So, and depending on the situation, this could be one or the other, I think. But that's been kind of like my kind of struggle, is kind of like mindset and kind of imposter syndrome, trying to navigate and find my own lane in mathematics, and kind of recognize my own talents and gifts in mathematics, and kind of and also trusting my mentors that they also can recognize good opportunities for me. So yeah, so I don't really have like a big story to share about someone kind of intentionally blocking my progress, but it's been definitely kind of more mental, and trying to identify, where do I belong in the mathematical community? So there's been kind of like a more personal struggle for me that I had to reconcile with as I got further and further along in mathematics.
Definitely, that's super important, because a lot of times it's us that gets in the way of ourselves. So that's really important. So that's a great segue actually to the next question, and I think I'm gonna throw it at Kayla. So let's talk about imposter syndrome, since Dr. John mentioned it. This is a phenomenon of feeling like you don't belong, and it often experienced by women and people of color. Catherine exhibits imposter syndrome when she says she doesn't know if she can keep up in that room. Have any of you ever dealt with feelings like this? That you didn't belong or weren't good enough? What advice do you have for others for how to overcome that feeling? And I kind of want to hear Kayla's response.
Sure, absolutely, all the time. Like, I think we can all say on this panel that we've definitely felt imposter syndrome at one time or another during our career, or being an undergraduate student, or just growing up. I think it's almost a double-edged sword, because you don't feel comfortable necessarily in the space you're in, being in your career at work, when you are like the only African American or the only woman. And then as well, within the African American community, you kind of begin to separate, because, you know, there's not a lot of people interested in the sciences and stuff. So when I want to geek out about the SpaceX launch or something, you don't have that reverse where like, oh man, I can go to that. It's like, let me tone it down because I feel like I won't be accepted here. So I feel like we almost get a double dose of that within our own communities and at work. And it can really harbor your progress and productivity, I think, is the major deficit that comes with imposter syndrome. You spend so much time in your own head and overanalyzing things and wanting to come out a certain way that you hold yourself back. And so for me, I guess the greatest tool that I used to overcome imposter syndrome was given to a mentor of mine. When I first started work, I was like, I'm upset. I know I'm 3 weeks in, but I haven't accomplished this. I don't have that. Like, I'm not doing as much as other people. And he said, Kayla, the only thing you can do when you come into work is to work hard, ask good questions, and listen well. Those are the only 3 things you should focus on. So when I started focusing on those 3 things in my day-to-day work, and like when I go into meetings, I'm going to make sure my comments had value. Like, I shouldn't say anything unless I have a data point to help with the decision. Then that's when I felt like, okay, this is no longer imposter syndrome. This is somebody that just loves space and planes. And it's like, how can I help us get to the next level? So breaking it down and peeling back the onion is kind of my recipe for dealing with imposter syndrome.
That's awesome advice. Thank you so much, Kayla. We actually have an audience question, and it's for Dr. Edmonds and Dr. Johnson from Charlie. Thank you so much, Charlie, for that question. And it is the math problem she did on the chalkboard in the movie the same exact math problem they would solve in real life? That's an audience question.
So I will say one thing that's really neat about this is that the producers of this film actually hired a mathematical consultant to make sure that there was a high level of accuracy for the mathematics that was being displayed on camera. And so the consultant, his name was Rudy Horn. He was an associate professor at Morehouse College, which is a historically Black college in Atlanta, Georgia. And so he worked very closely with the actresses to make sure that they were so he worked one-on-one with Taraji P. Henson to make sure that she was writing, accurate things, that she was kind of speaking the way a mathematician would speak. A lot of the things that you see in the background in various parts of the film, he made sure that it was going to be accurate to the type of mathematics that you would see going on in NASA at that time period. And a lot of times it's actually his own handwriting. And so if you think about the very first scene of the movie, where you have like a kind of young prodigy, Katherine Johnson, factoring a quadratic equation, and she's explaining it, what's on the background and is actually Dr. Horn's handwriting. And so a lot of kind of the mathematical accuracies in the film can be attributed to his work. And I thought that was really neat. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2017, but there's a lot of articles out there about his work in the film if you look it up. Maybe Dr.
I did not know that.
Maybe you can talk a little bit, I don't know, about the actual, and it was also his idea to mention Euler's method as a way to kind of approach the calculations needed to deal with John Glenn's orbital flight.
Yeah, just to add to what Dr. Evans was saying, I think some of the equations that were on the blackboard were actually taken from a report that Katherine Johnson wrote for NASA. And that's one of the themes in the movie about authorship and who gets to put their name on the report. So you saw kind of several scenes in the movie where she's like actually typing up the reports, and then she's putting one of the characters in the movie's name on it, and then she puts her name on it as well. And then the character is saying, "Oh, well, computers they don't have their names on the report." But what one of her first reports that she wrote in real life was analyzing kind of the orbits of an object, and then how many times it goes around, and when you need to kind of re-enter to land at a certain spot on the Earth. I believe that in certain scenes in the movie, those equations from the report were taken and put there as well. There's also like several kind of interesting mathematical things that are going on that will probably come up later in the conversation. I guess just to kind of highlight one that Dr. Edmonds mentioned was at the very opening scene in the movie. You notice that the actress playing the young Katherine Johnson is counting. So it shows she's saying, I think it was 14, 15, 16 prime, 17, 18 prime. And so in this case, instead of saying 14, 15, 16, 17, so 17 is what's called a prime number. Prime numbers are like special. So those are kind of like the atomic building blocks for all of our counting numbers. And so it was kind of showing her affinity for patterns even back then. I thought it was like a very effective use of that, which is also kind of true to life, as is said in the Hidden Figures novel, that she had like an affinity for recognizing patterns.
And that actually brings us to another audience question. So you mentioned, Dr. Johnson, that there were times in the movie where Katherine Johnson didn't get to put her name on the report. She did all of the work and did a substantial amount of the work and didn't get a chance to be able to get rewarded for that. Have any of you had that situation at work, and how did you all handle it? I kind of want to throw it at Sharon again to see what your response is if you've ever had an experience at work where someone was trying to take credit for a white counterpart trying to take credit for your work.
No, ma'am, because she was very vocal. And she stood her ground on everything. So yeah, when I came in there like gangbusters. They knew I was there. And I walked on water on the interview. I interviewed over the phone. I walked on water. So when I came in there, and there was a couple of guys already there that came from the Air Force Base where I was stationed. So they had forewarned them. So yeah, I came in there with no problems. I mean, I had nobody trying to steal my limelight or take anything away from me. Actually, seemed like a lot was given to me because of my expertise working with the suits. So they would come to me like if you had VIPs coming in or four-star generals or something, anybody like that, they would always come and have me be the one to suit them up and train them and everything. So no, I really didn't.
Awesome. Well, that's a good thing because sometimes that's hard to deal with for sure. So we have one more audience question, and it is, as a junior high school math teacher, what would you suggest I do to encourage girls and minorities to pursue math-related and STEM higher education and careers more than I already do? I show the movie every year, and we talk about it. I am so glad this story was told. And also got it, Dr. Edmonds.
Yes, so thanks for asking this. I think exposing your students to this movie is a really great start. I would also, so one thing that I struggled with, and I think that this is kind of the consensus on some of my peers as well, is not really knowing at a young age that there were options for pursuing math in general. I knew that STEM was like what you should do, but it was really hard to kind of find my place in that. And so I think any sort of like enrichment to like standard curricula in the sense of, okay, I'm going to highlight this person today who has done this, like as much exposure as possible to the different potential possibilities you have for a career in these fields, I think is great, especially at a younger age, to see just what a wide range of opportunities there are. I think also, a lot of universities have outreach offices that kind of are geared for doing this sort of work. It's just maybe they may not know that your particular school would benefit. So instead of maybe taking the burden completely on yourself, I think there's a lot of existing local programs that typically exist that have a primary goal of exposing students to what options they have for studying and then also for careers in the STEM fields. And I think seeing that they have options and seeing themselves in the people that they're learning about is very, very important, because I think I was maybe 22 or 23. I remember very distinctly the first time I met another Black female mathematician. I was at a conference and I gave her I was like, you're real? Like, you have a PhD and everything? And I gave her, I was like, can I hug you? And so I gave her a really big hug, but it just meant so much because to me at that point, I was the only one. And so just that exposure, it's really nice. And I can drop some things in the chat, some links for math specifically, some websites that do a good job of profiling Black mathematicians. But I'll leave it to the other panelists to kind of chime in if they have other suggestions.
Does any of the other panelists have any suggestions for the audience, possibly, of how to be able to, what other things she should be telling her students about?
I can go. I guess I'm speaking more to, the age of students you're approaching with being in junior high. So I was actually introduced to aerospace when I was in middle school. And it was actually by Dr. Edmonds, a Black math major at my school, who's, just taught a whole class on aerospace, like got us super excited. It was a fantastic course. I mean, I would go home and watch the NASA channel for fun. That's how enamored I was with the idea of space. But there's something about that junior high, middle school age where it's very hard for young girls and minorities to build up the self-esteem and confidence. So I really just let that dream die because I didn't have it at the time. So I think that's like the crucial age to really build up their self-esteem and empower them and let them know that, they can conquer anything that they can, because they probably are interested. They probably thinking this is cool, but they don't have that missing piece to light the fire within them to take them all the way to major in it in college or choose it as a career. So I think at that age, it's really crucial to make sure that they believe in themselves, as cheesy as it sounds.
Sorry, Christian, your sound just cut out for us. It looks like it's reconnecting. I'll give Christian's audio a second, but Kayla, if I can chime in, that wasn't cheesy at all. I think that's an excellent response and really helpful. So thank you. Looks like her audio's back. Let's.
Oh, she's muted.
I'm back.
Great.
Technology. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to go next to an audience question, and this is for Sharon. So our audience member wants to know what made you go into the aerospace engineering industry.
I get asked that a lot too. And let me give you the same answer. There was no magical moment lying out on a grassy knoll looking up at the stars. None of that. I was actually, the recruiter came out to our high school. I'm from a small town, Moss Point, Mississippi. And he told us all about, come fly to friendly skies. We'll pay for your schooling. You'll love it. You can travel. And I was like, sign me up. So going into the Air Force, you have to take a test. And so my test grades landed me in that category. So I didn't actually choose it. It chose me. The job that came up when it was time for me to enter the Air Force was aerospace physiology. So I was just lucky. And going out to the base that I was assigned to, where I was stationed, Beale Air Force Base in California, the altitude chamber and the hyperbaric chamber was my real AFSC, my actual job. But out there, they had the SR-71 and U-2 reconnaissance aircraft, and those crew members wore the pressure suits. So it was an extra duty, which was the fun part, of course, because the chambers were boring as all get out. And so I got to suit them up and learn how to work on the suits, and it was just like, next thing you know, like, where else am I going to work after that, right? That's my skill set. NASA. So yeah, I was, like I said, it chose me. I didn't choose it.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
You're welcome.
So we have one more audience question. Keep on coming with the audience questions, you all. We love them. So Rachel says, I love Hidden Figures. Who else's story hasn't been told that should be told and made into the next Hollywood blockbuster and raise the profile of unknown STEM heroes? Sharon, you got it. You're next. Dr. Johnson, do you have any suggestions?
Well, I mean, to kind of piggyback on what Dr. Edmond was saying, I think Rudy Horn is like a remarkable figure, and I think like his imprint in the movie is interesting in several ways. And Dr. Edmonds dropped a memorial article about Rudy Horn. I encourage you to come see him. I guess the other thing too, like to kind of talk about a project that me and Dr. Edmonds have been working on is we made a class, an OSU class involving Hidden Figures. And one of the components of the class is that the students actually interview what we call local hidden figures in the greater Columbus community. And we got some remarkable stories out about how people kind of progress in their careers and their background, from a Honda engineer with a background in mechanical engineering and mathematics to a data scientist at JP Morgan State with a background in math biology and transitioning to data science, to Franklin County coroner with a background in math and kind of using her mathematical skills to write reports to kind of track mortality figures in the county of Franklin County. So, and I think we'll have like several more this upcoming spring. But yeah, so I guess Rudy Horn and I guess the local hidden figures that our students had a chance to interview is and Sharon. I want to hear Sharon's story.
I could add just a bit to that. I think that there's a great benefit to what the Hidden Figures movie has done just for Black persons in STEM, and especially Black women. It's a source of empowerment, inspiration, and there's a universality. I always mess up when I say this word, but the story is very universal. It has a lot of universal components that make a lot of people connect to it from a lot of different backgrounds. But I want to piggyback off what Dr. Johnson was noting about our course. I think there's great value in finding these members of our own local communities and tapping into people that are tangible, accessible, that we can talk to, that we can ask them, how did you get to where you are, that we can learn about their stories. I think that that's just as powerful. And I would hope that there's like a ripple effect. And I think that that's what's happened from this film, is that we would start to search for this because there's so many hidden stories that we just don't know about. A more recent project that I'm involved in that'll start next year is just looking at the history of Black mathematicians at Ohio State in general. I kind of wondered, is it just Dr. Johnson and I, or that how many others have there been? And it turns out that we found nearly almost 200 Black mathematicians who graduated from Ohio State, and most of their stories are hidden. And so I really just believe that in every single sphere, there are these hidden persons, these people who are kind of working without recognition. And I hope that this film inspires others to highlight those people, to reach out, if you're a teacher, to bring them into your classroom, because I think there's a lot of learning to be done from their journeys.
Christian, I'd like to add something.
Yes, absolutely.
Like I mentioned, I worked out there 22 years. Never heard of any of those women until the movie came out. No plaques, never heard anything about them. So I was a little angry when it came out because I had never heard of it. And so that's what made me tell my story, because I just assumed everybody knew because I was in pictures with Dr. Jemison. So I was like, everybody know I suited her up in what I did because I'm in the pictures. I'm not hidden. Even people in my hometown had no clue what I did. So I'm thinking I didn't have a story to tell because it was already known. So when I saw the movie, I said, you know what, let me tell people what I did. And I'm sure other people did the same, as you guys mentioned, but it was crazy. I couldn't believe that we didn't hear about that. And I felt a little guilty that I hadn't shared my story because nobody really knows that suit tech is a job that they can get at NASA without a degree. They don't know. And so by me not telling my story all these years, look at all the young Black kids that probably could have followed in my footsteps if they'd known. Because I was the only Black woman, period, in my department, all the way till I became manager. That was it.
Wow, that's so important to really tell your story, because you never know. Like, even, people going out on Facebook and telling their stories, like so many people are just looking for someone to represent them and see themselves, a mirror reflection. So that's really awesome. So that actually is a good segue to the next audience question from David. He says, I'm so curious, why does this panel think it took so very long for stories of these remarkable women to be told? I followed the space program since the 90s since the 60s, and their stories never came out till this time. So let's see, Kayla, do you have an idea or a thought of why it may have taken so long?
I think, like you said, this is a perfect segue from the previous question. I think it's honestly sad, and it's shameful how many hidden figures we have in the Black community. Like how many, and it's not only that they weren't recognized for their efforts, but they were actively hidden from us. I mean, think about it. Like, some people just learned about the Tuskegee Airmen, who were, way back in like my grandparents' and great grandparents' time. And so I think it just has to do with the culture of America at the time, and that what was happening. Like, I mean, think about how it is now to see like Sharon or Dr. Johnson or Dr. Edmonds. You're like, oh my gosh, wow, I never thought I would see somebody that looked like me in this field. Think about how groundbreaking it was 50, 60 years ago. It was definitely a different time in the country. And I think that made it really hard for them to first be proud of what they were doing, because there are a lot of people that were against it and wanted them to fail. I think the film is kind of romanticized in the fact that it doesn't show a lot of the uglier parts that they probably faced. I think there was a lot more than just the bathrooms or the coffee pots. Just thinking day-to-day life, being able to vote, or the lynchings that were going on and stuff like that. I think it's just the time period that they grew up in that, it's sad that it's only in 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20 that it's been acceptable for this story to be told.
Kayla, that's actually really good that you bring that up about kind of the romanticizing of what they really went through. Dr. John, did you have a question, response? Sorry, I just want to make sure I didn't skip you.
Oh yeah. Well, real quick, I just wanted to if y'all haven't, to read the book Hidden Figures, and I think the kind of the opening chapter of that book, Margot Shetterly, the author, kind of relates how she found out about this story. And so real quick, in that opening chapter, her father was an engineer in NASA and one of the first in this group. And so she was relating the story that I guess on the drive, her father was saying that, oh, NASA had these Black women mathematicians who were computers, human computers, and then also were engineers. And she grew up in Hampton, Virginia. She knew her father worked there. She actually knew many of these women personally, but she didn't know kind of their contributions to NASA in the space race. It was only kind of a story from her father, and then she started interviewing the women locally, where she kind of found out about their impact and started to uncover this hidden figure story. So it's kind of an interesting bit of happenstance there.
Oh, I wanted to also note some of this is attributed to just kind of the infrastructure of human computing in general. Everything, so it's very difficult to kind of discern exactly what the women were doing at NASA because all of those things, materials were destroyed. There's no kind of like remaining evidence of what they would have done in a typical workday. And so they would there would be tests done in the wind tunnels, like we saw with Mary Jackson and her heel that almost got her caught in the wind tunnel in the movie. And then the engineers would kind of send calculations to be done by the human computers, by the women. And they would kind of imagine like an Excel file, but just a sheet of paper. They would kind of compute in a very systemic way. And then at the end of the day, that would go into the trash. And we kind of see this with a lot of the redacted files that Katherine Johnson had to work with. But one thing is that Dorothy Vaughan, in general, like in Margot Shetterly's research for the book, her name wasn't in any sort of like employee records. Like she learned of Dorothy Vaughan, who we saw was a supervisor for this unit, through the stories of others, not necessarily through anything official through NASA, which is really surprising. And so that's one thing. Another thing is that there actually are newspaper articles and press from Black publications from the Times that praised Katherine Johnson. It's just that was not a part of mainstream American consciousness at the time. We lived in it was very split. And so maybe she was well known amongst other Black scientists, but like you kind of highlighted, Kayla, that community was quite small, and that never seeped into the public's consciousness. They did documentaries about this work, but they never showed anybody behind the scenes. It was just the men and their ties, and they were the face of NASA.
Beautiful. So that just going to take a little segue to another audience question. And it's from Rachel. And she asked, what role does peer support and mentorship play in retention of minority students in STEM? And I know, Kayla, you talked about that quite a bit and how that impacted you. But Dr. Anthony, do you have anything anything that you advise for that?
I would say that it means everything. I would say that as a student, I just did not, especially when I was just coming to kind of learn mathematics, I knew that I loved it and I wanted to pursue it, but I was, in one part, was kind of waiting for some sort of stamp of approval from, my peers. I wanted some sort of validation that, hey, you should pursue this. Because without that, I wondered if I was just kind of spinning my wheels. So support in the sense of encouragement would have been really crucial and key from my professors. That would have meant a lot. And in terms of like peer support, when you think about the community that they formed within the Hidden Figures movie and the West Computing Group, this gave them a kind of a source of energy and strength and resilience to deal with the things that they dealt within Langley Research Center. And I think the same thing goes with when you're trying to pursue a STEM field. When you're isolated, it's very difficult to focus on just the math or the science. You feel like you don't belong, and it just can become a very toxic work culture. You can get in your head, and kind of go through a cycle. Well, maybe I'm not supposed to be here anyway. And so exposing students and being really intentional, I think from an instructor point of view, of creating a community that's inclusive, where people's ideas are welcomed, where it's okay to make mistakes, I think is really crucial. So I would just say the role of peer support and mentor support is everything. That is what we need. That's what everybody needs, and particularly minority students. I'll mute myself now.
No worries. Dr. Johnson, do you have any input on that question?
I think community and mentorship is everything. Like I don't see how you can get into any profession and be successful and grow in their profession without mentorship and community. Maybe you can just kind of push through, but that'll only get you so far. Especially in mathematics, like I said, mentorship has been crucial for me as far as like pointing out opportunities that my mentors thought I would be good for and would help me. And then also peer support as well. So I got my PhD at Howard University, and when I enrolled there, like at the time, there were the only historically Black college university, HBCU, that had a PhD program in mathematics. And being there, it was like a wall of support. And so like we're going through these tough math classes, then we're all meeting in the graduate school office trying to solve our homework problems. And we say, oh, I don't know how does this work? And it was just 360 degrees worth of support. And I don't think I'll be here without this support. I'm not sure. I don't know of any professional or anyone that's achieved at a high level in their career that's got where they're at without support or in mentorship. I think that's key. I think you have to find a community that is inclusive, that recognizes your strengths, and then also is invested in pushing and promoting your strengths and networking you with others. I think that's key. And I think if you don't have that in the community, then it's a dead community from kind of your point of view, that it's not going to help. So I don't know, that's like the most important thing in my mind. I mean, the technical stuff, the math, like the engineering, I think anyone can figure it out with enough time and energy. But without that community piece, I don't know what you have.
Sharon, do you have any input on that question? Sorry, I don't. Okay, cool.
No, you let those math whizzes right there, let them have nothing.
Beautiful, beautiful. So we actually have an audience question from Marilyn Clark. So Anna, if you could unmute Marilyn so they can ask their question.
Absolutely. Marilyn, you should have audio access now. Marilyn, looks like your microphone is unmuted, but we don't hear you yet. Can you try asking your question now for us? Okay, well, if you want to put it in the Q&A, we can try to respond to it there as well. Thanks.
Perfect, no worries at all. So I want to go back to a question that we had in the chat as well. And for Dr. Edmonds, from Wincy, and she says, thank you, Dr. Edmonds. What can others do to advocate for underrepresented groups in STEM? Example, minority mentorship.
See, that's a really good question. Thank you for asking. So in terms of advocating, I would say if you're coming from some sort of position of like where you're going to be an authority over, the students that are coming into your program, I would say that a lot of energy should be invested in examining the existing, space that you reside in. So that space could be a teaching unit within a high school. It could be your particular classroom. It could be a department at the college level. It could be a local organization, a club, but just kind of taking an assessment of the climate and whether or not it has or has not been serving the kind of students that you're trying to advocate for. So if there is, if so, then good, keep doing what you're doing and try to do it better. And if not, instead of maybe, it can be really frustrating when you have really good intentions, but you recognize that your efforts seem like they're in vain. Just kind of, I think, tap into the literature that exists that's kind of focused on the specific thing that you're trying to do, because it is out there, and maybe try to create some sort of support or community related to this effort of trying to improve your community. So for instance, like at the college level, this would be maybe a reading group about inclusive teaching practices and how we can improve this in a particular type of class. So I would say just try to create a community that's of support for what you're trying to do on the one hand. So if the community is like, okay, I'm trying to do this, it's very difficult to change a culture I don't know if you can do it by yourself. You need a community of peers and like-minded individuals who are also committed to that mission. So I think that that's a good place to start, is make sure you find a community of people that help you with what you're trying to do. And then also to get feedback when you're assessing the climate from the people themselves, if that's an option. You want to be careful about doing that in a way where you're not like having students try to solve your problems. But so that would be one suggestion, is just to create a community of support via reading groups and things like this, and to reach out to people who have done things successfully that you're trying to do is the quickest way. You know, get them on Zoom and be like, hey, how have you guys been able to do what you've done, and start from there. And that's just like one very specific. There's a lot of things. If I knew more particulars, I might have more of a different answer, but one suggestion would just be to get your own community focused on trying to improve the thing that you're trying to improve, which would be hopefully creating more inclusive environments for women and minorities in STEM, which means creating communities of support and mentorship. And you don't have to look like someone to be an effective mentor.
Beautiful. Well, I think we have time for one more audience question. And I'm going to go ahead and throw this one at Dr. Johnson. So it's, what makes you fall in love with math and science? What is your favorite part of Hidden Figures, and inspires you to do something changing for women and Black people?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. Thank you for that. For me, what I like about mathematics is kind of like, it's a puzzle. Like you're trying to figure out this object, and you're trying to explore it. And so really, we talked about imposter syndrome earlier, and when I'm learning a new field or trying to understand some mathematical object or thing, like I spend most of my time being lost. And so it's kind of like you're trying to map out this territory as you go along, and that's part of the game for me. So it's kind of like exploring this unknown space to me and filling that in. And I think that's one of the favorite parts that I liked about the Hidden Figures movie, is that there was a scene in there, if y'all recall, Dr. Edmonds mentioned it earlier, where they were trying to solve this problem of how do you get a satellite going from an elliptical orbit around the Earth to a parabolic orbit. That means that it'll start to re-enter in the Earth. And they were kind of stuck, and everyone was kind of like staring at the board, focused on like, how do we solve this problem? How do we solve this problem? And then some people saying, oh, well, it's impossible. How does it work? And that kind of encapsulated what I really like about mathematics, kind of like this back and forth saying, oh, well, how did this work? And then Katherine Johnson, she said, oh, I think we need to do something. Oh, and then I think Harrison, the character Harrison, said, well, Euler's method. And so they kind of unlocked the problem. So they had like this kind of hard problem they didn't know how to solve. And in community and in communication with each other, they were able to unlock that problem, recognize a pattern as it's presented in the movie to solve it. And to me, this is great. Like everyone's kind of working together. And this was even kind of alluded to in the movie, where I think one of the characters mentioned that either no one gets to the peak or we all get to the peak. And I don't know, that kind of encapsulates a lot of things, both democratic things that kind of speak to, I guess, the highest ideals of what we profess to believe in the US. And then also a lot of scientific things as well, in the importance of community, that either we kind of all get there or we don't. And I think there was like a perfect encapsulation of that in that scene.
Awesome. So I think we can squeeze in. I love audience questions. So this question is actually for Sharon. Do you have any suggestions for a child who has ADHD and is hard at focus, but loves learning about planets, stars, and the solar system?
I would, with the ADHD children, from what I know, they like to work with their hands, something to keep them busy. So maybe a Lego set dealing with space or whatever they're interested in, something like that. Anything that's mechanical for them to put together and play with, to keep them focused on that. And reading to them. I think reading to a child answers a lot of problems, no matter what it is. Reading to them and getting them engaged in whatever they're interested in. And like I said, the mechanical aspect of it.
Well, thank you so much, Sharon, for that. That's super important because we want to have space for all. So that encompasses everybody, regardless of disability, race, whatever. So that's super important. So I want to just round out this list of questions. I have a little bit of time at the end. And this is for everyone. So I'm going to start with Sharon. What resources or advice do you want to share with Black students and young professionals with a passion for STEM?
The first main thing is don't be afraid of being uncomfortable. Because when I was younger, that would be one of my things that held me back. I'll be like, that's hard. I'm gonna go try something that I know I can do, So don't be afraid of being uncomfortable, learning new things, even if it's hard, as has been mentioned before about, getting mentors and your peer support and everything. And also try to decide as soon as you can on what you want your career path to be, so you can go ahead and get started right now. And don't wait until your senior year and decide at the last minute you want to do A, B, C. So go ahead and start doing that and working towards that so you can take classes or take training or whatever you need to do to get to that point. Don't wait till the last minute. And utilize, as I mentioned before, utilize all your mentors, anybody you can reach out to. And now it's so much easier with Google and the social media and LinkedIn and all that. You can get in touch with so many different people that would be like, hey, yeah, I'll talk to you. I can tell you what I know. So, and any internships, if you got any kind of connects, that's why you got to network, get in there. And, because I wouldn't have found out about my job if another Air Force friend didn't call me and say, hey, there's an immediate job opening. So I wouldn't have known. So, you got to network and reach out to people. Don't be shy. You can't be shy. You can't be shy. I know a lot of you math geniuses are shy. So, you still kids, you cannot be shy. You got to come on, get out there and get to it. And then you just get old, grit and determination. Put your back in and get the work done.
Thank you so much. I'm going to throw that same question to you, Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, I think I would say, if you Google this, so there's this incredible TED Talk, and unfortunately I'm blanking on the author, the name who presented. She said it's the name of the TED Talk is The Danger of a Single Story. So, and so I think as you kind of progress, you want to be picking up these stories. So Hidden Figures is one story. You want to be kind of picking up these different stories along the way, because I think one of the causes of imposter syndrome or questioning whether you belong in a particular area is that maybe you have like this single story in mind of how things are supposed to go. And if you pick up all these different stories of how people succeeded and kind of gone through a particular field, that helps provide you with, oh, thank you, this just dropped in the chat. That helps provide you with kind of this, at least for me, kind of emotional support and a template for, hey, someone was doing something hard that I'm trying to do and they succeeded. So I think I can go a little bit further. So always keep in mind that whatever you're going through, that's just one possible story, and there are many, many, many different possible stories of how things play out. So so always look for different stories of how people have accessed a particular area to kind of complement what Sharon was saying before.
Awesome. All right, I'm coming to you, Kayla.
Let's see. Advice I would have would be probably along with what Sharon said about expanding your network, and along with that, not losing your momentum. So when you find something that you're really passionate about and want to go towards, like math or science, like if you're interested in it, keep driving down that path where you have momentum. And if you run into a spot where you're like, okay, I'm losing steam here, like this job isn't really for me, or I'm not enjoying this course, or like this career path, course correct, but the passion's still there. But keep that momentum going, or else you'll lose steam and you won't want to stay in the field. It'll be like, okay, I want to do something that's not as stressful, or like, the people like me better in, or like you try and make the environment make you more comfortable, but you're not following true to your passion. So I think always keep your momentum going forward. Keep a good community of peer support, as we mentioned before, and be genuine and true to yourself. I know another cheesy thing to say, but I think as African Americans and as minorities and as females and such, they do a lot of talking about the odds that are against us and the statistics that are against us, and like, like how we're disproportionate in the workforce and stuff, but there's not a lot of talk about the strengths that we bring to the table. And I think that was one secret that I was missing in my career at first, and when I was going through my undergraduate studies. I think that we do bring a lot to the table, and we make great engineers, and we have a lot of untapped strengths and potential that we're not taught about. And so stay true to yourself, because somebody's going to pick up on that talent and say, hey, we're missing that in our team. I want you. Or like, we don't have this in our class. Like, please be, present, or like, please ask that question. Because you have a space and you bring something to the table. So always keep that in mind.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kayla. Dr. Edmonds, I'm going to throw that question to you as well.
Yes, I think I don't want to kind of re-echo, because I've heard a lot of great things. I think one thing I would say, suggest, and this is something that is really evidenced by Katherine Johnson, maybe not so much so in the movie, but definitely if you read the book, she was kind of a living embodiment of someone who really had like equal pillars of like scholarship, teaching, service. She was like a very well-rounded individual. And I think when you're pursuing something, especially in the sciences that are challenging, that requires grit, self-advocacy, resiliency, networking, all of these things, it's really easy to base your self-worth based on how your career is going, and based on how much progress you're making on any particular task. It's very easy to not be able to distinguish yourself from that. And so I think within reason, I would encourage everyone that's interested in pursuing a discipline to stay true to who you are before you started all of this, to kind of determine, what is your price for, hey, like, the way that I'm feeling in this environment is not it. And I need to know when to walk away so that I can do my science in a place where I feel like at peace. And so, for instance, like Katherine Johnson, she tutored in her local church. She was in the choir. She was in the sorority, the same one that I'm in. And she got along really well with her coworkers. And she helped us, like she was instrumental in our early space program. And so it wasn't that she did everything. Her life wasn't completely revolving around like science. She did other stuff. She was like a well-rounded individual. And I think that can actually make your scholarship better. And so with that, I would just say to focus on your overall wellness, to focus and prioritize your mental health, and to sleep and to eat regularly, because those are not things that need to be earned. You don't need to earn sleep. And you don't need to earn food or meals. I think sometimes when you're in the grind of things, you kind of embrace habits that maybe won't lead to your overall like productivity. And even if you are able to pull over all-nighters, et cetera, that's not maybe sustainable over time, the older and older you get. So that's what I would say, to try to maintain a sense of balance and wellness, so that you feel like there is more to you than just the things that you are doing in your scientific environments.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much. And I'll add to that, and it's a shameless plug, but along with mentorship, as I had stated before, I'm a co-founder of the Patty Grace Smith Fellowship, which is a new fellowship for African-American students that are aspiring for aerospace industry career. And it gives mentorship, internship, and a summit to young people in the summer. And it's really for freshmen, sophomore, and community college students that are interested in a career in aerospace. So I will drop the URL in the chat, but I know we're pushing up on time. So thank you all so much for being here and being panelists for this Hidden Figures movie night. Thank you so much for having me as your host, and I will go ahead and throw it back at Anna.
Thank you so much, Christian. I'm so glad you shared that. I just posted the link here in the chat now. I'm really excited about this initiative, and I highly encourage folks to check this out and to share programs like this with any of the students you may work with who might benefit from these new opportunities that are sprouting out or up around us. So thank you so much. With that, I'd like to thank all of our panelists for joining us today, and Christian for doing such a wonderful job hosting. It's a lot easier just to watch you all talk than it is to do your job, Christian. So thank you so much for jumping in and joining us today. I am sad to share this will actually be my last event with Ohio State. It's been a really wonderful time working with everybody, and I'm sad to announce that I'll be leaving, but I'm starting a PhD program in January. Thanks for inclusive astrobiology education. So I'm really excited to continue working in that field. And it's been a wonderful year. I think we've had around 20 programs with all of you joining us in 2020 in our new virtual virtual environment here. So thank you all so much for joining us. And one quick and last announcement is that we are hosting an art competition that I want to share with everyone. And this is a free public competition for any art related to space inspired by the universe and the cosmos. And if you're interested in learning more, I just posted a flyer in the chat here. And our submissions are due on December 19th. So I'd really love to see everyone's astro art and to have as many folks submit as possible. So thank you everyone for being here with us today. And special thanks to our interpreter and our captioner for ensuring our event is accessible for everyone. With that, I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. And thank you all so much. It's been a real pleasure. Take care.
Bye, thanks.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Good night.
Night.